Hello and welcome to another exciting video by Marvelous Videos. I'm your host, Mystical Blue, and today I'll be taking you through Shade, exploring one of the oldest DC villains. Many characters in the DC universe have gone through major changes in their storylines time and again over the years due to the various continuities of the universe, and the Shade happens to be one of them. The Shade started as a small character, not having any significant roles or major villain moments. But his story was soon revamped, which showed him in a new light that the readers loved. So, who is Richard Swift, aka Shade, and what makes him such an intriguing character? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The evolution of Shade, aka Richard Swift. Richard Swift, also known as the Shade, first appeared in Flash Comics number 33 in September 1942. His character was created by Gardner Fox and Harold Wilson Sharp. Richard started his journey as a common thief who would manipulate shadows using his cane. He fought two incarnations of the Flash, Jay Garrick and Barry Allen. He later on became a member of the Injustice Society. As his first public crime after joining the Villain League, Richard and his henchmen blanketed all of Keystone City in complete darkness, and the event was ironically called Black Friday. He then later teamed up with the Fiddler and the Thinker and started a whole crime spree in the city until Barry crossed the dimensional barrier and helped Jay defeat the villains. Shade was still part of the Injustice Society when they enslaved the New Genesis population and revived Darkseid. The Shade story in the post-crisis timeline slightly differs. He started off as a thief just like pre-crisis, but there was no Black Friday event. Instead, Shade, Fiddler and Thinker kidnapped the Keystone City and its population, including Jay Garrick, and trapped them in a parallel dimension for nearly 30 years. Barry came to their rescue and saved the city and its people from the villains' clutches. The Shade later joined the incarnation of the Wizards Injustice Society known as Injustice Unlimited. They attacked the International Trade Conference in Calgary, namely Infinity Inc., and a contingent of the Global Guardians. They forced the heroes to help them with their crimes. Shade took Fury to Athens and used her to steal a piece of the altar of Erebus from the Areopagus. After they returned to Calgary, the Wizards' plan quickly went haywire when Our Man freed himself and Solomon Grundy was brought in from the Arctic Circle. The Green Flame then defeated Shade, and later he was taken into custody by Canadian law enforcement. Memorable story arcs featuring the Shade. Starman. Shade kidnapped Starman's father Ted Knight on orders from the Mist, although he soon turned on Mist and teamed up with Starman. He formed close ties with the O'Dare family, especially Matt O'Dare. He frequently helped Jack and Matt in their heroic endeavours. He even agreed to sell his soul one time to help those who were trapped in a cursed poster. He became enemies with Neron when he refused to accept a deal with the demon to increase his powers. During the events of the God Wave, Shade was left unaffected, whereas many powered individuals lost their powers. Culp took control of Shade's body and attempted to destroy Opal City. Shade manages to expel Culp, but he loses his powers. Despite this, he manages to use a shadow demon and fights against Culp, eventually winning. Infinite Crisis. During the crisis, Shade spends his time defending the city and its inhabitants as the city protector. Blackest Night. Shade is attacked by the Black Lantern David Knight. Shade does not die when Knight rips his heart from his chest, as he is immortal and he is able to resist the Black Lantern ring that tries to attach itself to him. He traps the Knight in the Darklands when he threatens to kill Jack and Hope O'Dare. Shade uses his own heart to trap the Knight and banishes him. Barry Allen and Hal Jordan later find him and ask for the teleportation to the Ghost Zone. He helps them and they locate the rotting body of Prometheus in the Ghost Zone. brightest day, Jay Garrick, Dr. Midnight, Sebastian Faust, and Wildcat seek out Shade and his assistants in locating Obsidian. He is found to be in a comatose state in his house, placed there by the Starheart-possessed Obsidian. Later, Shade is captured by Eclipso, who brainwashes him. He is finally rescued by Starman and Atom. He teams up with the heroes and finally defeats Eclipso. The Shade. The Shade is attacked in his home in Opal City and sets off to discover the truth behind his assassination attempt. At the same time, he also encounters numerous figures that have been important in his life. He also explores the extent of his powers and develops them further. He finally finds out that the hit was ordered by a member of his own family, Dudley, Lord Caldecott, acting in cohorts with an ancient cult. The cult manages to unleash ancient, godlike beings on London, whom Shade defeats by trapping them in a pocket dimension and then sending them to their home dimension. The speed of darkness. Shade is worried that he might end up returning to a life of crime and jeopardize his relationship with Hope, but what he doesn't know is that his shadow powers have taken it upon themselves to commit crimes on his behalf. Hope discovers this and believes it's Shade who has relapsed, and the shadows kidnap her, also entrapping Shade in the Darklands. He manages to push some shadows into Central City, which catches the attention of Kid Flash and the Flash, who come to help Shade. They rescue Hope and help Shade regain control of the Darklands. How he was brought back in a darker form by DC. 2011's issue of The Shade painted the villain in a much darker light, although he was no longer a villain then. The Shade lived his life as the immortal protector of Opal City and Hope O'Dare's boyfriend. But soon, his life is usurped by an assassination attempt carried out by Deathstroke under the orders of someone called Caldecott Industries. Shade decides to find out the truth about his assassination and teams up with Will Von Hammer, a private detective who had also been hired by someone from Caldecott to investigate the whereabouts of Shade's last remaining blood samples. When Will found out about the possible assassination attempt on Shade, he sent him the news, which also made Will a target of Shade's enemies. Shade meets up with Will in Hamburg, Germany, and rescues him from Bete Noir. Shade then insists that Will go to London and find out everything possible about the Caldecotts and why they might be so interested in him. Shade meets up with Pemmelwhite and finds out about the whereabouts of Darnell Caldecott, who has been living in Alice Springs in a manor with one guard who seems to be a lizard god. Shade then seeks out Diablo Blacksmith to find out how he can defeat this lizard god, known as the Mangar Kenjur Kunja. Shade finally arrives at Darnell's residence, where he engages in battle with the lizard god who does not allow him entry. After several attempts, he manages to convince the lizard god that he had no ill will towards Darnell or him, and after understanding his sincerity and actions, he's allowed entry into Darnell's house. Shade makes his way to a bedridden Darnell, who addresses Shade as his grandfather. Shocking, right? Great-grandfather, actually. Turns out Darnell had hired Will so he could find Shade's blood, and Darnell could use it to cure himself from his illness and find out who had been using Caldecott's wealth and resources for nefarious means. Shade's immense powers and his struggles in life over the past several decades were shown over the course of this comic, with it being finally revealed that one of his family members, Lord Caldecott, was behind everything. But Shade took care of him in his usual shadowy fashion and returned to his rightful place in Opal City. Shade was one of the villains in Season 2 of Stargirl. Jonathan Cake starred as the Shade in Season 2 of Stargirl. The Shade in the series was originally a thief, employed by Men of Tears in the 1800s. Swift had acquired the Black Diamond for the Men of Tears so that they could bind Eclipso to it, but they betrayed him by trying to use him as a sacrifice. Unknown to them, the Black Diamond was actually fake, and Eclipso was already bound to the real one. This led to the ritual going haywire, and the door to the Shadowlands being opened, and the resultant energy giving Swift his powers. Around the end of the 20th century, Swift aligned himself with the Injustice Society, even though he thought Icicle, the leader, to be insane. He joined the ISA in attacking the Justice Society of America, JSA. He pretended to fight and attempted to save Dr. Midnight, but lost him in the Shadowlands. In Season 2, Swift arrives in Blue Valley to look for the Black Diamond. He is confronted by Stargirl and JSA, to which he tells them his reasons for joining ISA and denies killing Midnight. He asks them to leave him alone and that he will leave once he's gotten what he wants. Despite this, the heroes and Shade engage in battle where he manages to escape by subduing the heroes. He later gets into another confrontation with Stargirl and reveals to her that Eclipso murdered Midnight's daughter, Rebecca. Stargirl's mother, Barbara, helps Shade and he intervenes during a fight between JSA and Injustice Unlimited in an attempt to destroy the Black Diamond. However, Stargirl ends up breaking the diamond and frees Eclipso, which forces Shade to flee. Eventually, Shade comes to aid Stargirl in reconstructing the diamond, as he claims it can only be used to bind Eclipso just once more. However, his deception is finally revealed when he uses the diamond to strengthen his powers and summon Eclipso, who sends Stargirl to Shadowlands. He then recuperates in a dark theatre. Barbara and her husband Pat manage to convince him to open a portal to the Shadowlands so that Stargirl, Midnight and Cindy can escape. It looks like the effort kills Shade, but he soon returns to help the JSA in defeating Eclipso. What made him so mysterious and powerful? Being able to manipulate shadows is absolutely cool, but the Shade could do so much more. He had the ability to control darkness. His powers were connected to the Shadowlands, which he could use to channel various effects. He is known to be the most powerful possessor of Shadowlands given powers. He can use his powers to teleport to great distances using the darkness and shadows, although it does exhaust him a lot and these trips can't be made often. He's able to create solid constructs out of the shadows. He also possesses the ability of Shadowland demon control, allowing him to summon and control demonic creatures of the Dark Zone. He can also project the darkness as forms of energy blast to attack his enemies, even create a force field out of the same. The Shade is also immortal, and the only way to probably kill him is if he loses his shadow, which isn't quite likely. He is resistant to all attacks, even surviving a bomb being dropped directly on him. In the pre-Zero Hour timeline, Shade developed his special cane, which was the source of his powers, but in the post-Zero Hour, his powers are innate. The Shade is as terrifying as he is charming. He is not the easiest opponent to deal with, especially when it comes to people who want to kill him, because, well, there's no chance, given the fact that the guy is immortal. His wide range of abilities makes him a strong villain, but since he did give up his criminal days to be Opal City's protector, there is no one better suited than him to be the fierce protector of the city and its inhabitants, using the shadows and darkness to spread justice his way. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.